Good afternoon. My name is Gary Sutcliffe, and firstly I just want to introduce myself as a husband, a father, a grandfather, a son, a brother, an uncle, a nephew and a cousin, and a friend. My address to you today focuses on my experiences with regard to my diagnosis of depression in the early 90s. At that time I owned and operated my own sports goods business. And following about 5 years of good trading and a very enjoyable lifestyle, we experienced a downturn in business, combined with an increase in competition from bigger players in the industry and a growing shift from local support for local business to suburban mall-based shopping. After making a decision that the shop needed a facelift and maybe transforming the store from a tired-looking old-fitting shop to a bright new one would help. It was in the middle of this work being done that I vividly remember experiencing a panic attack at the shop and telling my wife and my dad and a friend who were all helping out with the shop fit at the time that I needed to leave. I went home and went straight to bed. After a few weeks of huge anxiety about the shop and not knowing what was wrong with me, I went to see my family GP. Or our family GP. I can't recall whether it was at this first appointment or a subsequent one that he suggested I was probably experiencing depression and prescribed me some antidepressant medication and recommended counselling. He stated that at that time it may be several weeks before I became aware of any noticeable uplifting of my mood. After a month or so I went back to the GP and told him I felt no better and was quite desperate about needing something to fix my problem. While the counselling provided some short-term relief, maybe a few hours, it also didn't really help me to make sense of what was happening to me. The GP then said he could do no more for me in terms of medication because at that time he was unable to prescribe anything stronger and would need to refer me to a psychiatrist. I felt my world was definitely falling apart at that point. Not only did the word psychiatrist scare me witless, but knowing that this intervention was going to significantly cost me financially, and it was $200 for an hour appointment back in 1991, and that the fear of requiring hospitalisation combined to really drive me further into the big black hole I was already in. I had thoughts of suicide and imagined how I might do this, but they were, fortunately for me and my family, ideations only. I did not attempt suicide or harm myself physically in any way. A family GP was a good person. He has since retired. It's good to see my current GP here today, Dr. Kellich. Although he had quite a stiff approach to his patients, not in an uncaring way, but very much about clinical approach, assessment, diagnosis, medication. Although I knew absolutely nothing about depression or about mental illness generally at that time, I don't think that my GP had a great knowledge or understanding of mental illness. After an unsuccessful attempt at one type of antidepressant, the psychiatrist prescribed the SSRI nortriptyline, and after a few weeks I began to notice a lifting in my mood and very slowly started to regain confidence in myself and to once again experience some enjoyment in some of the things that I was doing. I was to remain on this medication for 15 years, including a number of attempts at phasing down the dosage to stopping it completely and finding myself on a cycle of relapse and reintroduction of the meds. Each of these phasing down periods was done in conjunction with guidance from my GP. So what could have been done better or differently? In hindsight, and following more than 8 years now working in the mental health sector, I now believe that my GP was more the norm than an exception, and that he had only a basic knowledge and understanding of depression. I believe he did his best for me, and his referral to a psychiatrist was eventually the right one. He could have referred me to mental health services, but knowing what I know now about mental health services, how they were for the most part 20 odd years ago, I'm glad he did not make that referral. Maybe also he didn't consider I was one of the 3% of people reported to have had a serious and enduring mental illness, and he was probably right. because I didn't present with psychosis, nor was I in any real danger of harming myself or others. Having seen some very significant developments in the mental health sector, particularly over the past 10 years, also, for example, the brilliant Like Minds, Like Mine campaign, and the subsequent ongoing campaigns focusing on depression, the introduction of peer support to secondary and NGO services, the development of a wider and better range of medication, and, importantly for the group I'm talking with today, closer working relationships between secondary, community and primary services. I believe we're on the right track and that there will be much less evidence of people falling through the gaps than there was 20 plus years ago. So where am I today and what do I do to keep myself well? My experience of depression and anxiety, particularly in those early days, taught me more about myself, who I am and what the really important things are in life. At the top of this list is a commitment to my own well-being and ongoing recovery. Right behind that is my family and close friends, finding time for relaxation, doing a lot of walking, reading, doing crossword and other puzzles, listening to music, and remembering to take medication, which is now a very low dose of citalopram. I make a point of seeing my GP at least every 6 months for a general checkup, as well as renewing my medications. All of the above combined ensures that as far as possible, I maintain a positive sense of well-being and have an active and healthy lifestyle. Thank you.